When I first moved into the old brownstone on Maple Street, I was captivated by its vintage charm and the promise of a quiet life in the city. The building housed only 4 apartments, and my unit was on the ground floor. The landlord mentioned that the tenant above me, Mr. Thompson, had lived there for over 2 decades. "Keeps to himself," he said. "You'll hardly know he's there." True to his word, Mr. Thompson was an enigma. I rarely saw him, and when I did, it was usually a fleeting glimpse as he entered or exited the building. He was an elderly man, perhaps in his late 70s, with a stooped posture and a distant look in his eyes. We exchanged polite nods but never spoke. It wasn't long before I noticed the odd noises coming from his apartment late at night. At first, it was just the sound of footsteps pacing back and forth, but soon I began to hear faint murmurs as if he was talking to someone. Curiosity gnawed at me, but I dismissed it as the eccentricities of an old man living alone. One evening, as I was returning from work, I found a small package addressed to Mr. Thompson left on the communal mail table. It was wrapped in plain brown paper with no return address. Thinking it might be important, I decided to take it up to him. I knocked on his door and waited. After a long pause, the door creaked open and Mr. Thompson peered out, his eyes wary. "Hello, Mr. Thompson," I began, holding up the package. "This was left downstairs for you." He stared at the package, then at me, before slowly extending a trembling hand to take it. "Thank you," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Without another word, he closed the door. As I turned to leave, I couldn't help but notice a peculiar odor wafting from his apartment. A mix of mothballs and something else, something metallic. I shrugged it off and went back to my unit. Over the next few weeks, the noises intensified. The pacing became more frantic and the murmurs grew louder, sometimes escalating into agitated conversations. One night, I heard a loud crash followed by a cry of anguish. Concerned, I rushed upstairs and knocked on his door. There was no answer. I debated calling the police, but hesitated, not wanting to intrude. The following morning, I bumped into Mrs. Garcia, the elderly lady from the 3rd floor, in the hallway. "Have you noticed anything strange with Mr. Thompson?" I asked. She sighed, clutching her shopping bag tightly. "He's been through a lot," she said softly. "Lost his wife 10 years ago. Since then, he's changed. Talks to himself, they say, but he's harmless." Her words offered little comfort. That night, the disturbances continued and my sleep was plagued with unsettling dreams. In one, I saw Mr. Thompson standing over my bed, whispering incoherently, his eyes hollow and devoid of life. Determined to get to the bottom of the mystery, I decided to visit the local library to see if I could uncover anything about Mr. Thompson's past. After hours of searching through old newspapers, I stumbled upon an article from a decade ago. It detailed a tragic accident. Mr. Thompson's wife had fallen down the stairs in their apartment and died instantly. The article mentioned that he had been inconsolable, blaming himself for her death. Armed with this knowledge, I felt a pang of sympathy for the old man. Perhaps his late-night conversations were with the memory of his departed wife. I resolved to reach out to him, to offer some companionship. The next evening, I baked a batch of cookies and took them upstairs. I knocked on his door, and after a lengthy pause, he opened it slightly, eyeing me with suspicion. "I thought you might like some cookies," I said, holding up the plate, "and maybe some company." He hesitated before opening the door wider. "Come in," he said quietly. His apartment was dimly lit, filled with antique furniture and the lingering scent of decay. Photographs adorned the walls, capturing moments of a happier time. A younger Mr. Thompson with a radiant woman I assumed was his wife. We sat in silence for a while, the ticking of an old grandfather clock the only sound. Finally, he spoke. "It's kind of you to visit," he said, his voice trembling. "I don't get many visitors." I offered a sympathetic smile. "I read about your wife," I said gently. "I'm sorry for your loss." His eyes welled up with tears. "She was my everything," he whispered. "Not a day goes by that I don't miss her." As we sat in silence, I heard it. Soft, deliberate footsteps coming from the back room. Slow, measured. Not pacing like before, someone was there. I tensed. "Do you have a guest?" I asked, forcing a casual tone. Mr. Thompson's expression remained blank. "No." The footsteps stopped. My pulse pounded in my ears. "Then who?" "She doesn't like visitors," he interrupted. His voice was hollow now, distant. "I told her you were just being polite." A chill crawled up my spine. "Mr. Thompson, there's no one else here, right?" His lips pressed into a thin line. "I shouldn't have let you in." Then, from the dark hallway behind him, a creaking sound, a slow, deliberate shift of weight on old floorboards. I shot to my feet, nearly knocking over my plate of cookies. "I should go." He didn't move. "She's already seen you." The words lodged in my throat. The apartment suddenly felt airless, suffocating. A door down the hall stood slightly open. Inside, pitch black. I wasn't staying to find out what was inside. "Good night, Mr. Thompson." I bolted for the door. His voice followed me, softer now. "If you hear her later, don't answer." I didn't sleep. Every tiny noise from the ceiling above sent waves of cold dread through me. Footsteps, whispers, furniture scraping, but worst of all, a faint knock at my door. I held my breath. Another knock, then 3 slow taps on my window. My heart slammed against my ribs. My apartment was on the ground floor, but my window faced a walled alley. No one should be there, no one. I didn't move, didn't breathe. A long scraping sound against the glass. Morning finally arrived. I convinced myself it had been a dream. Maybe a stray branch scraping in the wind. Maybe my mind playing tricks, but when I checked the window, a single long fingerprint was smeared across the glass. Not a full hand, just one long, deliberate streak. Like someone had been reaching. That night, I barricaded the door and shut every window. No sounds, no knocks. Maybe I was safe. Then at exactly 3:12 a.m., Mr. Thompson screamed. A raw, guttural wail, followed by a terrible thump. I grabbed my phone, hard hammering, and ran upstairs. His door was wide open, and inside, the furniture was overturned. The photos on the walls had been slashed. And in the middle of the living room, Mr. Thompson sat hunched over, crying. "I told you not to answer," he sobbed. "She knows you now." His eyes flicked up to me, and behind him from the dark hallway, a shape shifted. Mr. Thompson's frail frame shuddered as he whispered, "You shouldn't have come." Then, from the hallway came the sound of soft, deliberate footsteps. A woman stepped into view. She was eerily beautiful in an old-fashioned way, like a portrait come to life. A long dress neatly pressed, hair dark and smooth. She moved with a kind of grace that felt wrong, too measured, too careful. My breath caught, because she looked exactly like the faded picture of Eleanor I had seen on Mr. Thompson's mantle. Mr. Thompson collapsed to his knees. "My love, I knew you'd return to me." The woman smiled softly, reaching out to cup his face. "You never lost me, darling." Something about the way she spoke sent a ripple of unease through me. It was too practiced. I swallowed. How is this possible?" Her eyes slid to me, and for the first time I noticed how cold they were. "Faith," she said simply. A chill ran down my spine. I wanted to leave, to run, but something kept me rooted to the spot. Mr. Thompson was sobbing into her dress, clutching at her like a man starved for touch. "I prayed," he gasped between tears. "I gave everything. I never lost hope." She stroked his hair. "And you were rewarded." A flicker of movement behind her in the dark hallway. Was there someone else back there? I should go," I stammered. Mr. Thompson's head snapped up. His face was streaked with tears, but his eyes burned with something frantic, desperate. "You see her, don't you?" His fingers dug into the carpet. "Tell me you see her!" I nodded quickly, not trusting my voice. The woman's smile deepened. "Then we understand each other." I took a shaky step back. "Yeah, right. Good night, Mr. Thompson." Her eyes followed me, unblinking. I practically ran out the door. I barely remembered getting home. My hands were ice cold as I locked my door twice. My mind wouldn't stop spinning. It was her. It was Eleanor. I had seen her, heard her voice, but how? I wasn't superstitious. I didn't believe in things like this. And yet, I had seen her. The apartment was too quiet. Every creak, every shift in the walls made my nerves spike. I shut off all the lights except for the one by my bed, just as I was starting to calm down. A soft knock. It came from my front door. I froze. No one knocks this late. Another knock. Slow, precise. I crept toward the peephole, forcing myself to look. Nothing. Then, a whisper right outside my door. "You shouldn't have interfered." My blood turned to ice. I stumbled back, my mind screaming at me to lock the door, check the windows, hide. But before I could move, another sound. 3 slow taps on my window. I turned so fast my vision blurred. The blinds were shut, but beyond them I could see it. A shadow. Tall, unmoving, waiting. A cold sweat broke across my back. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. For the first time in my life, I was paralyzed with fear. Seconds stretched into eternity, then footsteps moving away. I stayed awake until dawn. Only when the first rays of sunlight streamed through the blinds did I finally dare to move. With shaking hands, I pulled the curtain back. The alley outside was empty, but on the glass, a single smudged fingerprint, like someone had dragged their hand across it. That was the moment the fear cracked, because up close the print wasn't shaped right. Too long, the edges too clean, like someone had been wearing gloves. And then I remembered. I had locked that window. So whoever touched it was never inside. This wasn't supernatural. This was staged, and I had almost fallen for it. I dressed and left immediately, straight to the police. 2 hours later, I was sitting in a freezing interrogation room, telling a detective everything. He listened, didn't interrupt. Then after a long pause, he leaned forward. "You're not the first." They had seen this scam before, a gang, con artists, preying on the deeply religious, convincing them they could bring back lost loved ones for a price. Mr. Thompson had money, a lot of it, and they had been bleeding him dry for years and scaring off anyone who got too close like me. That night, the police moved in. I wasn't allowed near the scene, but the detective called me the next morning. "They got most of them." I sat up. "Most?" A pause. 2 slipped through. The wife was an actress, part of an elaborate scam. The group had been bleeding Mr. Thompson dry for years, manipulating his faith, his grief, his fear, but the mastermind, the one who orchestrated everything, was gone. And so was another accomplice. "They knew we were coming," the detective admitted. I gripped my phone tighter, so someone had tipped them off. I should have felt relief. Instead, when I got home, something was waiting. A letter, slipped under my door, no return address, no handwriting I recognized, Just a single line written in careful, deliberate script. You shouldn't have gone to the police. I swallowed hard. My fingers trembled as I turned the paper over, looking for more. Nothing. Just that one sentence. It wasn't a direct threat, but it wasn't not a threat. I looked at my locked door, and suddenly I didn't feel safe at all.